Hey guys, tonight we take a slow walk along the dusty roads of imperial China, following a profession most people forget even existed: postal workers of the Song Dynasty. No blue trucks, no barcodes, and definitely no overtime pay. Just silk-wrapped scrolls, a steady pair of feet, and an appetite for food that could survive the jolting rhythm of a long ride or a longer hike. Your day begins before sunrise. The air is still thick with sleep, and the world is more shadow than shape. You reach for your satchel, not the one with letters, but the far more critical one: breakfast. It's not glamorous. No eggs Benedict here, no tiny spoons balancing on tiny porcelain saucers. You unwrap a bundle of cold rice cakes, sticky with date paste, and bite into the stiff sweetness while adjusting your boots. They're too tight around the ankles, and the laces feel suspiciously damp, possibly from yesterday's puddle encounter. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and if you're listening from somewhere cozy, post your location and local time down in the comments. I love knowing where you're drifting off from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step out of the wooden postal station, the scent of damp paper and old ink lingering behind you like a forgotten verse. The mist clings to your sleeves. Somewhere, a rooster is making it absolutely clear that your nap window is officially over. You walk past rows of damp straw mats and out into a world of gray-blue hills, worn paths, and the faint sound of another courier coughing in the distance. There are a lot of those this time of year. Dusty lungs are something of a postal hazard. Your morning snack finishes quickly. 2 rice cakes with crushed walnuts folded in, sticky dates mashed in between like nature's caramel. A third cake goes into your pocket, not out of thriftiness, just planning. You learn the hard way that lunch might be 3 mountain passes away and taste suspiciously like boiled leather. Historical fact time: the Song Dynasty postal system was one of the most sophisticated of its time, with more than 1,600 official stations crisscrossing China. Each station could provide fresh horses, shelter, and, if you were lucky, a bowl of something edible. Couriers like you carried documents, edicts, and news faster than most nobles could travel, but the official records rarely mention the meals. And that's a shame, because breakfast on the road matters. You pause by a stream just wide enough to be annoying. The bridge is a lopsided plank someone nailed in place 2 dynasties ago. You step carefully, slipping slightly on moss, and reward yourself with the dried pear wedge you stashed in your sleeve. It's more chew than flavor now, but hey, fiber is fiber. As the sky warms to a milky white, the smells of the land intensify: wet dirt, pine needles, and the faint hint of something fermented from a nearby village, possibly tofu, possibly a neighbor's failed attempt at it. Quirky fringe tidbit. Song couriers were sometimes known to trade food across regions. A man riding north from Hangzhou might carry a pouch of spicy shrimp paste to barter with a colleague bound for the hills of Sichuan, who had superior dried mushrooms. It was an informal network of taste bud diplomacy. One 12th century letter even complains that a delivery was late because the courier stopped for eel cakes and forgot the emperor's timing. Classic eel cake detour. You adjust your satchel and keep walking. The early morning quiet breaks now and then with the flutter of birds, the snap of a twig, and the endless inner monologue of your feet wondering if those sandals you saw last week were worth the splurge. The trees ahead rustle with promise, or threat. You can't always tell which. Historians still argue whether song couriers were trained soldiers or just really determined walkers. Some records suggest they were skilled in martial arts. Others suggest they were just good at walking away quickly. Either way, you tighten your robe, adjust your belt pouch, and wish you had brought a second pair of socks. As the morning unfurls, you reach the edge of a small outpost. Smoke curls from a chimney. A sleepy teenager hands you a steamed bun without looking up. It's filled with mashed taro, slightly overcooked but still warm enough to soothe your fingers. You nod a thanks and sit briefly on a bamboo stool that wobbles like it's questioning your life choices. You eat the bun slowly. The taro is earthy, the dough pillowy. A distant dog barks. Somewhere inside, someone drops a bowl and swears in a dialect you don't understand but absolutely feel in your soul. As you head out again, the taste of sweet potato lingers on your tongue. There's a full day ahead, scrolls to deliver, miles to trudge, new foods to sample, and occasionally regret. But for now, your belly isn't empty. The road is calling, and the rice cake in your pocket still has half a date clinging to it. And that's enough for this leg of the journey. By mid-morning, the sky is a gentle swirl of pale blue and white, like someone spilled watered-down ink across a silk scroll. You're halfway up the first real slope of the day, a hill that someone once had the audacity to name Gentle Cloud Rise, despite the fact that it's mostly rocks, goat droppings, and regrets. The path narrows between two steep ridges, shaded by pine trees that whisper and creak as you climb. You can feel the burn in your calves and the clumsy jostling of your satchel with every step. Your breakfast feels far away now, like a half-remembered dream of sticky rice cakes and warm taro buns. What you need is fuel. Not just for your legs, but for your brain, which is currently doing nothing but humming an off-key tune about soup for some reason. At the halfway point, you finally spot the flat stone ledge you always use. It's your unofficial dining table. One rock, one dent, one convenient pine tree overhead. You plop down with an exhale that could be heard in the next province and pull out your second bundle of food. This one's wrapped in stitched palm leaf, a humble little packet holding cold millet porridge, a tea egg, and 2 salted soybeans that have apparently been in there since last Tuesday. Still, you're too hungry to complain. You peel the tea egg first. The cracked shell flakes off in satisfying spirals, revealing that marbled brown and white pattern that looks like the surface of an ancient map. You bite into the yolk, dry, savory, a little chalky, and wash it down with a sip from your bamboo canteen. It's filled with slightly sweet chrysanthemum water, still faintly cool from this morning's well. A fly lands on your knee. You brush it off with the air of someone who has fought worse. Like that time you ate duck jerky in the rain and found a feather halfway through. Mainstream fact of the day. Tea eggs were already common by the Song Dynasty. Steeped in soy sauce, star anise, and other spices, they were one of the few snacks that could travel without going sour, making them perfect for couriers like you. Cheap, compact, and suspiciously addictive, even when slightly overcooked. You eat the porridge next. Cold millet doesn't sound thrilling, and honestly, it isn't. It tastes like what you'd expect gray gruel to taste like, but it's filling. Mixed with chopped scallions and a hint of ginger, it goes down easier than your old boss's handwriting, which is saying something. You scoop the last bits with your fingers, eyeing the remaining soybeans. You pop one in, but it crunches in a way that beans should not crunch. Into the forest it goes, off to confuse a squirrel. As you lean back against the tree, the breeze lifts your bangs and cools your face. A few leaves fall like slow-motion confetti, spiraling down beside you. Somewhere, birds are chirping. Somewhere else, someone is burning something, and the smell carries faintly on the wind. Herbs, maybe, or pine needles and old onions. Then you hear it, the flutter of wings. You glance upward and spot it. A pigeon with a little tube on its leg, flapping awkwardly before landing in the branches above. The bird tilts its head like it's judging your posture. You raise your tea egg and salute. The pigeon blinks and coos as if to say, "Nice yolk." Now, here's a quirky tidbit. Song Dynasty couriers didn't just rely on legs and horses. In certain provinces, trained pigeons carried short notes across nearby towns. And unlike their human counterparts, they didn't demand steamed buns or complain about rocky hills. Some relay stations even had rooftop pigeon houses, though rumor has it, one unlucky flock once flew south for the winter and ended up in someone's soup. You wipe your hands on your robe and rise, stretching your back with a satisfying pop. Your legs ache, but in that good way, like they've remembered how to be legs again. You dust off your sleeves and step back onto the road. It curves gently now, the slope softening into a high meadow with views of far-off rice fields, their water reflecting sunlight like tiny shattered mirrors. Historians still argue whether song couriers traveled alone or in pairs. Some evidence suggests that for longer routes, pairs were preferred for safety, shared workload, and, you guessed it, food rotation. One eats while the other walks, then they swap. It's either brilliant or depressing, depending on how hangry you get. You, however, are solo. Just you, your scrolls, your sore ankles, and your memory of that one egg that hit all the right notes. You begin to descend into a patchwork of fields where workers in wide hats are already waist-deep in muddy water. You wave. One waves back. Another offers a small wooden skewer, something steaming and skewered and vaguely fish-shaped. You decline politely, and make a mental note to invent the phrase fish-adjacent protein the next time you write a letter home. The road here smells like wet straw and chili smoke. Not bad, not good, just noticeable. You pass a mule cart piled with sacks of something labeled dried radish, and you do not investigate further. By the time you reach the next postal marker, a stone slab with mossy etchings, you're hungry again. You pause, glance left and right, then slip a candied lotus seed from your pouch. You chew it slowly, savoring the sticky sweet center. It sticks to your teeth. You do not care. And as the clouds gather quietly above the hills, you press forward. One scroll tighter in your belt, one less egg in your pack. One more tale to tuck into your future letters. Today, I dined like an emperor. An emperor with dirt on his knees and a single, slightly cracked tea egg. Your feet drum a rhythm into the packed earth road, worn with centuries of use. Couriers, farmers, wandering monks, the occasional goat-led procession. Dust kicks up with each step, clinging to your hems and your shins. A pair of sparrows dart ahead, arguing about something in squeaky trills. You'd intervene, but diplomacy with birds rarely ends well. The late morning sun slants sideways, warming the road while your stomach contemplates whether lotus seeds qualify as a meal. They do not. You rummage in your pack again. There, tucked beside a scroll pouch, is your hidden treasure, a small cloth wrap tied with red string. Inside are 2 golden pancakes, griddle-cooked rice cakes, pressed with scallion and a hint of fermented bean paste. Crisp at the edges, a little chewy, just greasy enough to make you regret it later, but not now. You bite in. It sings. Mainstream. Fact incoming. During the Song Dynasty, food stalls and snack vendors flourished in cities and larger way stations. Couriers and travelers like you often relied on these bianxi, portable meals bought on the go. Pancakes, dumplings, skewers of roasted eel, even steamed buns filled with preserved greens. It wasn't glamorous, but it was delicious enough to keep the empire's paperwork moving. You round a bend in the road and spot one of your favorite stops. A lone shack with a tattered awning, squatting at the edge of a mulberry grove. There's an old woman there, already fanning coals. Her walk hisses with promise. You wave. She nods without looking up. "Same as last time?" she asks, poking a spatula at something sizzling. "One, please," you reply, setting down your pack with a theatrical groan. She hands over a small parcel wrapped in lotus leaf. Still warm. Still fragrant. You sit cross-legged on a flat stone and unfold the bundle. Inside, glutinous rice rolled around mushrooms, tiny shrimp, and minced bamboo shoots. Each bite is earthy, salty, and inexplicably comforting, like a lullaby made of umami. As you eat, a cat appears. Thin, smoky gray, one ear clipped. It eyes you with world-weary suspicion, then curls beside your rock like it owns the deed. You break off a corner of the rice parcel and set it near its nose. The cat sniffs, yawns, and decides you're tolerable. Quirky tidbit for the day. In Song Dynasty markets, cats weren't just tolerated. They were sometimes revered for protecting food stalls from rats. Some vendors even left out offerings of fish scraps in exchange for the cat's security services. You wonder briefly if this cat charges a monthly rate or just prefers edible tips. You thank the cook, leave a coin in her tin, and continue walking, belly now full and spirit vaguely soothed. The road hums again beneath your soles. That rhythm returns, dust, step, dust, step. Now, the scenery shifts. You enter a low, shaded valley where the air turns cool and wet. Ferns crowd the path, and bamboo arches overhead, clattering in the breeze like tall, leafy wind chimes. You pass a moss-covered well, said to be centuries old. The water here tastes faintly sweet, tinged with minerals. You've drunk from it before and lived, which is the best review one can hope for. Historians still argue whether Song couriers were given rations from the government or had to scrounge their own. Some records mention food tokens or vouchers at relay stations, while others imply it was more of a figure-it-out or starve system. Based on the uneven quality of your recent meals, you suspect the latter. In the cool valley, smells change again. The air is heavy with damp earth and crushed mint. Somewhere ahead, you hear the faint clack of a knife against wood. That means another vendor, or a traveler who's very, very bored. Sure enough, you find him, a boy, no more than 12, sitting by the roadside with a basket of sliced fruit. His face lights up when he sees you. "Courier, want a slice of ice fruit?" You raise an eyebrow. "Ice?" He grins. That's what the travelers call it. It's just chilled melon, from the spring. You shrug, drop a coin in his tin, and accept a dripping wedge of white melon. It's cold. Sweet. Juicy enough to trickle down your wrist. You sigh dramatically. The boy laughs. "Better than dried bean paste, huh?" You nod and continue, munching the melon down to its rind. You toss the peel into a thicket and watch it disappear into the ferns. The sun creeps past its apex. You cross a small wooden bridge that groans beneath your steps. Below, a stream gurgles through mossy rocks, the kind of sound that makes you want to nap immediately. But there are scrolls in your satchel and ink smudges on your fingers. You press on. You chew a final bite of the pancake from earlier, now cold, still perfect, and mutter thanks to whatever ancestor invented roadside carbs. Somewhere in the trees, a bamboo wind chime rattles. A vendor's cart trundles by, the smell of sesame oil trailing behind like a flirtatious ghost. The driver whistles a tune you almost recognize. Almost. Your next stop is just beyond the bend. Another station, another brief rest. But for now, the trail is quiet. You walk in rhythm with the trees, with the rustle of bamboo and the memory of rice warm against your palm. And just like that, it's time for your next snack. Again. The path begins to rise gently now, and your legs protest in their usual, polite way. Not a full rebellion, just a dignified complaint. The heat has mellowed, filtering softly through thin clouds, and the trees grow taller, like quiet onlookers watching a lone courier disappear up the spine of a hillside. Your breath forms a slow rhythm, more meditative than tired. You glance over your shoulder. No one behind you. The road is yours. You're not alone, though. There's a rustling in the undergrowth. You pause,
half hoping for a tiger. You've heard the pension package is generous if you survive an encounter. Instead, it's a bush chicken, comically round and wildly unbothered by your presence. It regards you with one eye, pecks at the dirt, and waddles off, muttering to itself in poultry grumbles. Your heart rate returns to baseline. This ridge marks a threshold, not just geographically, but gastronomically. Because this, dear wanderer, is dumpling country. Now, dumplings were a staple across the empire, but every region had its flair. In the highlands you are climbing, dumplings are made with thicker wheat wrappers, pleated into chubby half-moons and steamed in fragrant bamboo baskets over fire-warmed stones. These aren't snack food, these are entire meals. Fortresses of flavor, padded with chopped pork, garlic chives, sometimes even chestnut or dried mushroom if the cook was feeling poetic. Mainstream fact? Song Dynasty postal routes were often tethered to monastic communities and trade hubs, where pilgrims, merchants, and messengers like you shared dining tables, sometimes literally. Dumplings became the democratic food of the road. Nutritious, portable, and, most importantly, easy to swallow in 2 bites between dispatches. As the path narrows, the smell hits you: sharp vinegar, soy, and the deep umami of pork fat steaming in bamboo. You follow it like a cartoon character lifted by the nose. Around the corner is a man crouched over 3 tiers of steam baskets. He's wearing 1 sandal, 1 boot, and the expression of someone who knows exactly what they're doing. "Courier?" he says without looking up. "Hungry," you reply, removing your satchel like it's weighed with cannonballs. He flips a lid, revealing dumplings as soft as clouds and nearly glowing with heat. He doesn't speak again, just gestures to a flat rock nearby and hands you a chipped bowl of black vinegar flecked with crushed ginger. You bite in. The outside is chewy. The inside, pork, scallion, a sliver of sweet daikon, is piping hot and aggressively flavorful. You exhale through your nose like a kettle. The vinegar cuts through the richness like a poem told sideways. You nod in solemn approval. He accepts this with a grunt and flips another basket lid. Fringe tidbit time. According to one tangential Song-era folktale, dumplings were once offered to wandering spirits during the Hungry Ghost Festival, in hopes they wouldn't haunt travelers. These spectral offerings were left by roadside trees, often stolen by raccoons or opportunistic monks. You finish your dumplings with reverence.
Your host accepts 2 coins, a bowed head, and the last of your travel jokes about chickens. As you stand to leave, he places a single dumpling in a folded lotus leaf and presses it into your hand. "For the next climb," he says. "Steep 1. You nod and tuck it into your robe. The next climb is indeed a leg burner, the kind of incline that would make a donkey file a complaint. But your belly is full, and the scent of ginger still lingers at the back of your throat, acting as motivation. You pass a milestone, literally. A stone marker, half swallowed by ivy, proclaims you are exactly 3 li from the next dispatch hut. About a mile, about forever. The trees thin. The sun breaks fully through, dappling your path with gold and green. Somewhere a flute plays. Not well, but with confidence. You crest the hill and are rewarded with a view. Terraced fields, shimmering with young rice plants, their roots lapping up reflected sky. A few houses cling to the slope, smoke curling lazily from their thatched chimneys. You imagine what it must smell like down there. Wood fire, boiled tea, simmering fish stock. And just like that, the road calls again. 1 foot, then the other. Historians still argue whether these courier stops offered standard meals or whether they varied wildly with local fare. Some records describe fixed menus, rice, fish, fermented vegetables, while others hint at a rotating mystery buffet. Judging by your experiences so far, it's likely a delightful mix of both.
plus the occasional surprise dumpling. As you walk, you unwrap the lotus leaf. Inside, the dumpling is still warm. The scent, herbaceous, slightly nutty, fills your nose. You take a bite. This one's different. No meat. Instead, mashed mung bean, crushed peanuts, and what you swear is a drizzle of honey. Unexpected, but good. Really good. Your lips curl into a smile. The road becomes easier. Below, in a village courtyard, someone calls for a child. A chicken clucks disapprovingly. A pot lid clangs. You can almost smell the broth from here. The wind tugs at your sleeves like an impatient sibling. You move on. Snack by snack, mile by mile, you carry the Song Empire's whispers in your satchel and its flavors on your breath. You descend into the rice valley with a stomach that still hums pleasantly, though the dumpling didn't last long. The path winds between terraced paddies like a polite snake, never in a rush, always observing the view. On either side, farmers in conical hats bend over their work, sleeves rolled high, toes sunken into mud as soft as pudding. You wave. One waves back with a sickle. This is a peaceful stretch. You feel the hush settle in, broken only by the croaking of frogs and the occasional plop of a boot disappearing deeper than expected. You carefully sidestep puddles as though they were diplomatic crises. But your stomach, the eternal timekeeper, gives a little grumble. Already? The dumpling wasn't magic, it seems, just delicious. And so begins the gentle rumination. What's for lunch? You recall, fondly, what another courier once told you over a game of Wei Chi. The secret to surviving these roads isn't speed, it's soup. Not soup as you might picture it today, but something called geng, a thick, sludgy, soul-warming slurry somewhere between porridge and potion. Root vegetables, dried mushrooms, beans, shredded greens, sometimes tofu if the heavens smiled. Sometimes, for a real treat, a few slivers of duck or eel would swirl in, like finding treasure in your boot that isn't a scorpion. Mainstream historical fact: geng was a ubiquitous part of Song Dynasty diets, served in homes, inns, and monasteries alike. Because it could be made from whatever ingredients were on hand, it crossed all social classes and fit beautifully into a food culture that prized warmth and internal harmony. You veer slightly from the road, an old habit born of rumor and a decent nose. Over a rise, tucked beside a bamboo grove, you find it. A roadside pavilion barely more than a shack, draped in blue cloth that flaps lazily in the breeze. A small cauldron bubbles over coals out front. The proprietor, an elderly woman who appears to be 1/3 spine and 2/3 mischief, looks up with a grin. Courier? You nod. No point pretending otherwise. Your uniform's dust pattern gives you away instantly. Gang's hot. Sit. You obey with gratitude and a touch of theatrical groaning as you lower yourself onto a stool. The old woman ladles out a generous portion into a clay bowl and adds, unprompted, a dollop of chili paste on top. You raise a brow. For courage, she says, utterly deadpan. Fringe tidbit time. It's believed some roadside soup stands in this era doubled as informal news hubs. Couriers, monks, and peddlers shared gossip with every spoonful. Recipes passed hand to hand alongside rumors of bandits, imperial edicts, and which postmaster had been caught stealing ink again. You stir your bowl and inhale. It smells like resilience, taro, garlic, bok choy, and a whisper of smoked something. The chili hits your nostrils in advance, and you brace for impact. You take the first spoonful, and your eyebrows consider fleeing your face. It's hot. Not just spicy hot, but temperature hot. You make the universal "whoo, that's hot" noise and fan your mouth. The old woman chuckles softly and hands you a cup of lukewarm barley tea. You sip the tea between bites and gradually adapt to the fire. Under the heat is a layered taste, earthy from the root vegetables, savory from fermented soybean paste, and just enough sweetness from goji berries floating near the surface like bright red life rafts. It's simple, but in the way that monks are simple, hiding deep complexity under a robe of calm. More? She asks, already reaching for the ladle. You hesitate, then nod. Your satchel may get heavier, but it'll have to compete with your stomach for space. As you eat, a scholar stops by, recognizable by his thin robes, ink-stained fingers, and slightly annoyed expression, as though the sky had insulted his poetry. He glances at your bowl and says, "She puts too much garlic." She throws a radish at him. Historians still argue whether these soup stalls were officially sanctioned or tolerated rogue enterprises. Some imperial edicts suggest food vendors along postal routes required licensing. Others imply the government simply looked the other way, provided the food was edible and the gossip mostly harmless. The scholar grumbles, but slurps a bowl anyway. You trade nods, brothers in soup, if not in philosophy. As you scrape the bottom of the bowl, the old woman hands you a candied plum on a skewer. "Dessert," she says. "Also good for breath." You accept. It's sour-sweet, chewy, and surprisingly effective. Your breath now smells like a mysterious herbal shop, possibly haunted, but pleasant. You pay her with 2 bronze coins and a smile. She waves you off without standing, already peering into her pot like it contains secrets from the stars. Back on the road, the valley widens into low hills. The heat rises, but your spirit holds steady, bolstered by warm soup and the enduring memory of that flaming chili paste. Somewhere a bird calls, a lonely, prolonged whoop like it just stubbed its toe on a cloud. You answer back with a low whistle and grin at your own ridiculousness. The courier life isn't glamorous, it isn't fast. But with the right bowl of gang and a well-timed candied plum, it's survivable. One step after the other, one bite after the other. The road stretches on, dotted with the ghosts of dumplings and soup fumes. A gentle incline rises before you now. Nothing dramatic, but just enough to remind you that soup, though heavenly, is not a substitute for leg strength. The path winds between low-growing tea shrubs and quiet farmhouses. It's a rhythm now. Step, breath, blink, sweat. You hum a tune your grandmother once called completely tuneless, which frankly only makes you more committed to it. Up ahead, nestled between hills like a bookmark in a well-worn novel, you spot the next relay station. It's not glamorous, just a timber-walled outpost with a sloping roof and the eternally present smell of horse sweat and moldy paper. You sigh, because this one is rumored to serve pickled radish that could either invigorate your soul or annihilate your tongue. Inside, you drop your satchel on a bench with a quiet grunt. Stretch your back until it makes that concerning pop, and glance around. There's a small kitchen in the rear, and already, the scent of fermented something clings to the air like gossip to a bored noble. Today's station keeper is a wiry man with a magnificent mustache shaped like a crescent moon. He doesn't speak at first, just nods and gestures toward a plate. There it is, the infamous pickled radish. Pale yellow, glistening with vinegar, stacked in trembling layers, like shy geisha fans. Mainstream historical fact. The Song Dynasty postal system, while not as elaborate as the Mongol yam or Persian chaparkhane, was surprisingly advanced. Stations like this were spaced at regular intervals, roughly every 30 to 48 li, about 10 miles, and served as rest points for government couriers and, occasionally, very persuasive private messengers. You lift a piece of radish with your fingers, sniff it cautiously, then bite. It is, how to put this politely, an emotional experience. The vinegar sings, the salt scolds, your sinuses experience sudden enlightenment. You make a noise that might be a compliment or might be a distress call. The station keeper snorts approvingly, a fringe tidbit. Certain postal outposts were known more for their culinary oddities than their efficiency. One inn near Hangzhou reportedly served tofu preserved in ash, a dish described in contemporary diaries as profoundly gray and profoundly unforgettable. The station keeper finally speaks. Good, yes? You nod. Sort of. Your tongue hasn't fully decided. He slides a small clay cup across the table. Inside is lotus root tea, brewed with ginger and dried jujube. You sip it with gratitude. It tastes like peace in liquid form, cool, earthy, sweet. If the radish was a slap, this is an apology hug. He joins you at the table, unrolls a bamboo scroll, and starts reading softly to himself. You don't interrupt. The quiet scribble of brush on paper blends with the breeze coming through the open door. You could fall asleep here, if not for the distinct scent of wet horse. You step back outside after a rest and refill your water gourd from a barrel of well water cooled with river stones. There's something ceremonial about it, like you're baptizing your thirst. The next stretch of the journey takes you through a bamboo thicket. The tall green stalks sway like sleepy dancers, and every breeze sounds like a page turning in a massive, invisible book. A soft crunching comes from the side of the path. You pause. Out steps a monkey. Just one. Holding what appears to be half of someone's pastry. He stares at you. You stare back. He offers you the other half. You politely decline. He shrugs and vanishes. Historians still argue whether monkeys along the major trade and courier routes became conditioned to expect food from humans, or whether they were simply opportunistic. One scholar even theorized that a group of monkeys in the southern provinces learned to recognize mail satchels as sources of snacks. You chuckle to yourself and carry on. The terrain begins to change again. Drier, flatter, more exposed to sun. Rice paddies give way to millet fields, and the smells shift from damp green to dusty gold. Your shadow grows long and angular on the dirt path, dancing beside you with exaggerated flair. You chew on a piece of dried plum from your pouch. It's not sweet. It's aggressively sour. Your mouth contorts involuntarily, and you think, why did I pack this? But then, as the sharp tang fades, you feel strangely refreshed, like your palate just got slapped awake. The road passes a roadside shrine. You pause long enough to press your palms together and offer a muttered thanks for safe travels, for decent radish, for the absence of snakes. Then, a soft bell rings in the distance. A cow? No, too melodic. You realize it's a mobile street vendor. Yes, even in the countryside, food finds you. A man with a shoulder pole approaches, two steaming clay pots dangling from either end. One smell is unmistakable. Sweet rice cakes. The other, less obvious. Turns out, it's black sesame porridge, thick and fragrant, made with just a hint of rock sugar. You exchange a copper coin for a small bowl. It's delicious. Nutty, sticky, warm. The vendor grins. Old family recipe. Guaranteed to keep your legs moving and your thoughts gentle. You nod. The porridge is like edible lullaby. As the vendor walks off, bells tinkling again, you realize something. You're not just surviving this courier route. You're kind of thriving. You're back on the path now, warmed from the inside out by black sesame porridge and sweet rice cakes. The road ahead is framed by low stone walls, the kind that mark ancient property lines and serve no apparent purpose anymore except to collect moss and wayward snails. The walls lean at angles only technically vertical, like sleepy old men at a festival. Ahead, the terrain dips gently into a shallow valley. The air changes again, holding a scent that's part wood smoke, part duck feathers, and just a hint of garlic. Your stomach, full but never quite full enough, perks up like a suspicious cat. You've entered one of the floating market villages. These were small trade hubs near rivers, where boats bobbed quietly, tied to creaking docks, and vendors grilled food from swaying wooden platforms. Unlike the urban chaos of Hangzhou or Kaifeng, these markets feel floaty, literally and figuratively. Mainstream historical fact: during the Song Dynasty, water-based markets were incredibly common in southern China, especially along the Yangtze and its tributaries. These river communities thrived on boat-to-boat trade, with postmen often relying on such floating stations to cross water routes and grab a quick bite. Your sandals slap softly against worn wood planks as you step onto the floating dock. Somewhere a fish flops in a bucket. Someone laughs gently from behind a curtain of drying squid. And right beside you, a boy no older than 8 expertly fillets an eel like he was born holding a knife. You pass a vendor selling grilled duck tongues on skewers, fanned out like a bouquet nobody asked for, but everyone's oddly curious about. Another stall serves sticky rice wrapped in lotus leaves, the scent herbal, warm, a little grassy. You choose the rice. You're not anti-tongue per se, but it feels like something one should attempt with more emotional support. The vendor, a grandmother with a half smile and one gold tooth, nods as she hands you the bundle. "Chew slowly," she says. "Life is long, but meals should feel longer." You sit on the edge of a dock and unwrap your food. The lotus leaf unfurls like an ancient scroll, revealing a perfect mound of glutinous rice studded with mushrooms and tiny chestnuts. It tastes like comfort, like someone tried to translate autumn into food. A fringe tidbit: some versions of lotus leaf rice included not just rice and nuts, but also salted egg yolk or shredded chicken soaked in Shaoxing wine. Certain floating vendors became minor celebrities, known for family recipes guarded more fiercely than gold. You watch 2 cats quarrel on the roof of a nearby boat, their tails flicking in annoyance, their meows soft as yawns. Nobody intervenes. The cats clearly have tenure. A dragonfly lands on your bowl. You nod politely. It does not nod back. Historians still argue whether postmen were allowed to dawdle at places like this. Official documents suggest strict timekeeping, distance covered per day, messages delivered without delay. But diaries and poems from the era hint otherwise, that couriers took liberties, especially if the food was good, the weather forgiving, and their supervisors far away. You stretch, not dramatically, just a casual, full-body sigh. Your knees crack like thin ice. You feel every mile in your joints and decide to delay departure a bit longer. You walk slowly among the stalls, breathing in the mixed perfume of wood smoke, soy sauce, fried shallots, and river mud. Then you spot it, a vendor with a flat stone griddle, pressing down rounds of dough with a heated clay press. These are pan-fried scallion cakes, served blistering hot and dangerously flaky. You order one, and as it's passed to you in folded paper, you realize you have officially eaten 6 times today. You take a bite. It shatters delicately. The scallions are bright, peppery, the dough chewy with a whisper of crisp. You close your eyes. Somewhere, an ancestor nods in approval. With reluctance, you finally leave the market. The floating village disappears behind you in gentle ripples and duck calls. Back on the main road, it's quieter again. A flock of geese honk overhead in formation, unbothered, unimpressed. You wave. They don't wave back. You hum your tuneless song again. It feels appropriate. The day is late now, but not yet evening. You pass a pair of traveling monks sharing a meal beneath a ginkgo tree. One offers you a dried persimmon. You accept, bowing. It's leathery and sweet, like fruit jerky, and leaves your fingers faintly sticky. They don't ask what you're carrying. You don't ask where they're going. It's a quiet exchange, held together by the unspoken understanding that roads are for sharing and snacks are for giving. The path curves near a waterfall, a thin, polite one, more trickle than thunder. The air is suddenly cool again, and you drink deeply from your gourd. You feel tired, but it's a good tired. The kind earned in the soles of your feet and behind your eyes. At the next ridge, you pause to look back. You've come far. You've eaten well. You've avoided duck tongues. Progress. You crest the ridge just as the shadows start to stretch like lazy cats across the road. The sun dips behind a hill, and with it, the warmth of the day begins to fade. Slowly, gently, the way a silk fan closes after a long conversation. You adjust your pack, tugging the strap that's bitten into your shoulder all day, and look ahead. There, in the not-too-distant valley, lies the next postal checkpoint. It's modest, just a cluster of wooden buildings with tiled roofs, a few fluttering red banners, and what appears to be an extremely enthusiastic goose pacing the courtyard like a guard dog on a sugar high. Before heading in, you spot a well just off the road, shaded by a cherry blossom tree with petals clinging to its last bloom of the season. You draw up water with the old squealing pulley, splash some on your face, and take a long drink. It's cold, mineral-tinted, and tastes like the beginning of a haiku. The checkpoint here is run by a family who's clearly seen every kind of traveler. They barely glance up as you enter. The father is tallying something with an abacus that's missing 2 beads. The mother is expertly folding letters into triangles without a drop of wax in sight. Their youngest son, maybe 9, offers you a bowl of pickled vegetables and a stare that says he's already judged your entire character. You eat anyway. Mainstream historical fact: Song Dynasty postal checkpoints, known as Yi, were scattered every few miles along major routes. Staffed by both government workers and local families, these stations acted as transfer hubs where letters, riders, and often tired feet could pause before moving on. Some even offered lodging and basic meals to weary messengers. Your room for the night is bare but clean. A sleeping mat, a rolled-up reed pillow, and a single candle sputtering in the corner like it's doing its best under a lot of pressure. You sit cross-legged on the mat, unwrap one of your rations, dried tofu with 5-spice powder, and nibble slowly. It's salty, earthy, and has that faint medicinal taste that makes you feel like your spleen is probably grateful. You stretch, letting your back crack again, and hear a soft meow. A tabby cat has snuck in, weaving between your legs like it owns the place. Which, let's be honest, it probably does. You give it the last bit of tofu. It looks vaguely disappointed but eats it anyway. A fringe tidbit. Couriers in the Song era often carried tiny charms, amulets carved from bone or bronze, tucked into their waistbands to ward off bad luck, or more commonly, bad weather. One popular charm depicted a carp leaping over a dragon gate, symbolizing persistence in the face of bureaucracy. You know, relatable. As the candle burns lower, you step outside for one last look at the sky. It's gone full ink wash now. Deep blues bleeding into velvet black, stars flickering like someone's poking holes through paper. Somewhere, a nightbird calls once, then thinks better of it. Historians still argue whether song couriers traveled alone or in pairs. While most official records suggest solo journeys for speed and discretion, oral tales and temple murals often depict pairs walking side by side, sharing jokes and trading stories like sweet buns. It's likely that both happened, depending on the route, the season, or the mood of the administrator with the seal. You lean against the wooden railing and watch a moth flit around the lantern. It's not a very determined moth, just kind of drifting from glow to glow, mildly committed to whatever mission moths have. Back inside, the cat has claimed your mat. You politely reclaim a corner and lie down, letting the day unspool behind your eyes. Every smell lingers. Lotus leaf, charcoal, plum sauce, spring onion, and even your dreams tonight feel like food. In the morning, the checkpoint family serves congee with preserved egg and ginger slivers. You eat it slowly, letting the rice dissolve on your tongue while the world gradually spins back into motion. The goose is still pacing outside, now joined by a rooster with authority issues. They ignore each other with visible effort. Back on the road, you pass through a bamboo grove that sings softly in the wind, thin stalks clinking like old silver chopsticks. The path is dappled with sun and shadow, and once again, you're alone with your thoughts, your feet, and your now mildly regretful stomach. Because, as delicious as that congee was, it was slightly too filling. You trudge, you digest. You spot a shrine tucked beside the road. Small, with offerings of rice cakes, incense, and a single peeled orange. A handwritten prayer flutters beside it. May the message arrive swifter than the wind and the belly stay fuller than the moon. You add a coin, because you never mess with good phrasing. At the next bend, you're flagged down by a young farmer carrying bundles of scallions in one arm and a bamboo tube filled with tamarind water in the other. He offers you a sip. It's tangy, sweet, cooling. Your tongue throws a tiny parade in its honor. In exchange, you give him a dried fig from your pouch. He seems confused, then delighted, then deeply suspicious. You move on. Ahead, you hear the clatter of hooves and the creak of ox cart wheels. Another delivery caravan, headed in the opposite direction. You nod. They nod. Nobody speaks. It's the silent language of mutual suffering and slightly unwashed uniforms. They carry baskets of letters, bundles of fabric, and, oddly, a cage full of ducks. The ducks appear to be unionized and are staging a slow, synchronized protest in quacks. You don't ask. You walk. The day stretches again, golden and languid. Each step feels softer than the last, as if the road itself has grown accustomed to your rhythm. You stop only once more before sunset, to eat a dried apricot and stare at a field of windblown millet swaying like it's trying to remember the lyrics to something. Evening comes. The stars blink back, and your pouch, once heavy with snacks and sauces and noodles, feels emptier now, but your heart full to the brim. Full. The road this morning is quieter than usual, not just in sound, but in mood, like even the trees are whispering a little less. You stretch your arms overhead, feel a few satisfying pops along your spine, and step out into the misty gray of dawn. The Song Dynasty is always waking up gently, with farmers brushing their courtyards, temple bells echoing faintly in the distance, and someone, somewhere, already frying something in sesame oil. You pass through a sleepy village just as its clay ovens are coming alive. Thin spirals of smoke drift upward, carrying with them hints of rice porridge, pickled mustard greens, and garlic chives. Your stomach, ever dramatic, gurgles like an operatic ghost. But you can't stop. Not yet. You've got letters to deliver, and even a postman with priorities knows. Cold porridge is a sad porridge. The path winds past paddy fields where farmers wade thigh-deep in water, tossing out bundles of seedlings. Their hats are wide-brimmed and woven like upside-down baskets. You wave, a few wave back. One gives you the wait there finger, then jogs toward you balancing a ceramic jug and a wooden ladle. He offers you a scoop of something cloudy with tiny yellow petals floating on the surface. You sip, It's chrysanthemum rice water. Cool, lightly sweet, and strangely floral. Your mouth tastes like a respectable garden. Mainstream historical fact. The Song Dynasty was home to an impressively sophisticated network of seasonal beverages. Chrysanthemum, plum, and mung bean drinks were often sold at roadside stalls and believed to cool the body and balance qi, especially for those constantly on the move, like, say, overworked postal couriers with uneven tan lines and bad knees. You thank the farmer, adjust your satchel, and carry on. By mid-morning, you enter a market town, and here, the quiet spell breaks. It's loud, delightfully so. Vendors are already shouting prices, children are chasing dogs, and the dogs are chasing sausages. You slip between carts and stalls, dodging elbows and bamboo baskets. A man with a wok the size of a wheel is frying scallion pancakes so fast you suspect sorcery. You watch for a while, hypnotized by the rhythm. Pour, swirl, scatter the onions, flip, slap, flip again, sprinkle with sesame, serve. A woman next to you chews thoughtfully and says, "His pancakes used to be fluffier before he got married." You nod solemnly. That sounds accurate. The post office here is tucked behind a noodle shop. It smells incredible. Soy, smoke, and fermented black beans. And if the letters weren't urgent, you'd absolutely linger. You drop off a bundle of sealed messages and pick up a new batch, each wrapped in oiled silk to protect against rain. One has a wax seal shaped like a frog. You decide not to ask. A fringe tidbit. There's a recurring motif in Song-era children's rhymes about postmen eating so many red bean buns that their letters began to smell sweet. One poem even claimed that a certain lucky delivery, destined for the emperor himself, arrived smelling like dessert and was mistaken for a heavenly omen. The truth? Probably more about butter-stained fingers than divine correspondence. You leave the town with a fresh bun tucked into your pouch and the frog's sealed letter nestled beside it. The road rises into low hills, and you pass stone shrines every few miles, some worn smooth, others freshly dusted. You pause at one to light a stick of incense. The scent is sandalwood, dry and warm, and it wraps around you like a favorite blanket. Historians still argue whether Song Dynasty postal routes were guarded in any formal sense. While some documents mention military escorts or road patrols, especially during wartime, others suggest that security relied mostly on local goodwill and courier invisibility. Blend in, look tired, and never stay in one spot long enough for trouble to find you. By early afternoon, the sun is high and the hills are humming with cicadas. You sit beneath a cedar tree to eat that red bean bun. It's still warm. The filling is smooth, sweet, and a little salty, the way nostalgia tastes. You chew slowly, savoring each bite, and watch a lizard sunbathe on a nearby rock with smug satisfaction. Soon, you're moving again, this time through a narrow canyon where the wind whistles between stone walls like an indecisive flute player. You catch the scent of roasted peanuts and glance up. A woman sits on a rock ledge with a basket and a tiny brazier, cracking shells and humming a folk tune. She waves. You wave. You both smile like co-conspirators in a very low-stakes heist. Eventually, the terrain flattens and fields stretch ahead. Rows upon rows of green onions, ginger plants, and the occasional sugarcane stalk swaying like it's got secrets. You pass a cart filled with cabbages the size of pillows, and a man napping directly on top of them. Respect. Your legs ache, but in that good, satisfying way that means you've earned your meal. Which arrives, thankfully, in the form of a family selling snacks under a red paper umbrella. They offer lotus root chips, steamed corn with miso butter, and a jug of ginger honey tea with little ceramic cups. You hand over 2 coins and accept everything. You sit with the family for a while, listening to the buzz of flies and the dull thud of someone chopping firewood nearby. One of the children plays with a wooden top, spinning it over and over until even the dust starts to look dizzy. The eldest daughter, no more than 15, asks what it's like being a courier. You smile and say, "Mostly walking, and not losing things." She nods like that makes perfect sense. The tea is finished. The road waits. You walk again. As dusk falls, you reach a riverside where egrets are gliding low over the water like elegant paper kites. There's a ferry crossing, and you trade a dried plum and half a scallion pancake for a ride. The ferryman is gruff but fair. His boat smells like fish and old rope, but the view, oh, the view, is something out of a scroll painting. Mist rising, lanterns glowing, reflections winking like secrets. By the time you reach the far bank, night has fully arrived. Crickets take over the soundtrack. You pull your cloak tighter, adjust your pack, and spot a farmhouse ahead with a paper lantern bobbing at the door. You knock. They answer. You're fed rice, fried eggplant, and fermented tofu so pungent it practically tells stories of its own. You thank them. You sleep soundly. Tomorrow, more roads. But tonight? Just a full belly, a borrowed mat, and a frog-sealed letter still dreaming of its destination. Morning comes softly, the kind that doesn't quite wake you so much as gently nudge. There's a rooster somewhere. Of course there is. But he sounds half asleep himself, like even he's not entirely convinced about starting the day. You stretch under your woven blanket, inhale the scent of sesame oil and old timber, and sit up slowly. Your legs ache. Again. But this time it's the good kind. The ache of honest kilometers walked and red bean buns well earned. Your hosts are already bustling. A boy is hauling water with the determined wobble of someone too small for the buckets, while his grandmother tends to a wok large enough to host a tea ceremony for 8. She waves you over and hands you a shallow bowl of millet congee. It's warm, plain, comforting, topped with fermented turnip bits and just a touch of scallion. The kind of breakfast that whispers, "You'll need stamina today." Mainstream historical fact: millet was a staple grain across many parts of China during the Song Dynasty, especially in more rural regions. While polished white rice became a prestige item among elites and city dwellers, millet remained the everyday friend of farmers, travelers, and frugal monks. Easy to grow, quick to cook, and gentle on the belly. You slurp slowly. The boy sits beside you and watches you eat with unblinking interest, occasionally poking at your travel satchel like it might be a magic bag. You offer him a dried persimmon. He accepts it with reverence like you've just gifted him a dragon's tooth. Soon it's time to leave. You thank your host with a deep bow, sling your bag over one shoulder, and step back onto the road. There's a certain silence to early travel. Less chatter, more breathing. The landscape unfolds around you like a hand-drawn scroll. Terraced hillsides, scattered pine groves, the occasional mule cart creaking along like a groggy relative. Around midday, you pass a roadside monastery. It's not large, maybe 5 monks total, but they've got a bell, a cat, and a surprisingly well-tended herb garden. One of the monks waves you over. He offers tea, poured from a clay pot shaped like a gourd. The scent hits you before the warmth does. Osmanthus and roasted barley. Sweet, nutty, and just floral enough to make you wonder if you're hallucinating from hunger. You sit cross-legged with them in the courtyard. They ask no questions, offer no judgments. Just tea and a bowl of steamed lotus seeds, lightly dusted in cinnamon. The cat climbs into your lap. It decides you're boring and leaves. A fringe tidbit. Some Song Dynasty monks were rumored to be secret snackers. While their vows forbade indulgent meals, certain sects developed elaborate loopholes involving meditative nourishment, which apparently included honey-glazed taro and spiced chestnut paste. Scholars still debate whether this was culinary innovation or holy loopholing. After tea, you rise, thank them with a bow, and continue. The road now curves alongside a river. You pass a few fishermen casting nets, their boats barely wider than your arm span. One calls out and offers you dried squid on a stick, which smells aggressively of the ocean and ambition. You eat it slowly. It's chewy, salty, and slightly burnt, like someone tried to grill a bookmark and accidentally made it delicious. Historians still argue whether Song Dynasty Postmen received regular rations or relied entirely on local generosity. Some records suggest small food allowances or portable meals provided at certain hubs, while others insist that couriers depended almost entirely on the kindness of strangers and whatever could be carried in a pouch or swiped from a low-hanging fruit tree. Late afternoon brings the kind of heat that makes shadows shimmer. You seek refuge beneath a camphor tree and nibble on a wedge of rice cake with pickled plum. It's sour, sticky, and oddly comforting, like eating a complaint in snack form. Further along, you pass a caravan traveling in the opposite direction. Their goods are wrapped in oilcloth and secured with tight ropes. One cart smells strongly of dried mushrooms, another of soy paste and faint horse. A trader tosses you a handful of mung bean crisps, thin, salty wafers that disintegrate like edible paper. You wave in thanks, mouth too full to speak. As the sun begins its slow descent behind the hills, the world takes on that golden, syrupy light that makes everything seem more poetic than it probably is. You walk with slower steps, not just because you're tired, but because it feels right. Like you're savoring the final chapter of a very edible book. You pass through a small hamlet where children chase chickens and chickens chase bugs, and no one seems particularly alarmed by any of it. A woman at a stall offers sweet rice balls stuffed with black sesame paste, saying they'll help you dream deeper. You buy two. One goes straight to your belly, the other goes in your satchel. For later, for when the stars are out. The inn tonight is simple. A single room above a shop that smells perpetually of dried seaweed and ginger. Your room has a mattress made of bundled straw, and a window that opens to the sound of frogs doing their best opera impressions. Dinner is modest. Bamboo shoots and broth, wheat noodles with soybean mash, and a side of something that might be eggplant or might be extremely ambitious tofu. You don't ask. You're too sleepy to care. It's hot, salty, and served in a bowl large enough to double as a hat. You eat everything. The innkeeper brings a tiny cup of fermented rice wine as a gift for sore feet. You accept it with gratitude, even though your feet would probably prefer a massage and a retirement plan. Outside, the stars blink on. Inside, you yawn. And as you curl into your bedding, one thought floats gently through your mind. If every day is this full of footsteps and flavor, then maybe, just maybe, you wouldn't mind doing this again tomorrow. The roosters take their job a little too seriously today. Before the stars are even done blinking goodbye, they're already yelling about dawn like someone assigned them a megaphone. You grumble into your blanket, roll once, then twice, and finally give up with the slow-motion sigh of someone too polite to argue with poultry. Downstairs, the innkeeper greets you with a sleepy bow and a breakfast of warm soybean porridge, accompanied by a side of pickled radish slices cut thin as whispers. The porridge is nutty, earthy, and slightly sweet, the kind of food that doesn't demand conversation or eye contact, which is just as well because your brain isn't quite online yet. You pack your things, stretch your legs, and slip back onto the road like a letter being slid into a very dusty mailbox. The first stretch of path hugs a cluster of rice paddies, their mirrored surfaces catching the morning light like quiet pools of gold leaf. Dragonflies flit between stalks. Frogs pretend to be pebbles. You walk slowly, mostly to admire the scenery, partly to avoid startling ducks into melodramatic honking. Today, the road takes you near a government courier outpost, an official rest stop where messengers like you can refill water, check routes, and, on good days, score a hot meal. You knock gently on the bamboo gate, and a steward greets you with the resigned familiarity of someone who's dealt with too many tired travelers and not enough coffee. Inside, there's a communal kitchen where a wok sizzles with garlic chive dumplings. You're handed two, along with a sliver of bean curd skin rolled in sesame oil. The dumplings are crispy at the edges, soft in the center, and packed with green onion, mushroom, and a rumor of chili. You inhale them like a polite vacuum. Mainstream historical fact: Song Dynasty courier stations, known as Yi, were spaced at regular intervals along major routes. They functioned as multi-purpose hubs, rest stops, supply points, communication centers. Couriers could exchange horses, update their route information, and sometimes sleep in designated quarters if space allowed. Today, though, you don't linger. Another messenger is already waiting to share your bench, and his expression suggests a deep philosophical hatred for sharing benches. Back on the trail, your path climbs gently into hilly terrain. The breeze is stronger here, scented faintly with pine and something else. Grilled scallion pancakes, maybe? Sure enough, not long after, you reach a tea pavilion nestled beside the road, operated by a retired soldier who brews green tea so strong it could resuscitate philosophy students. He nods at you, offers a steaming cup, and gestures toward a plate of fried tofu cubes dusted with 5 spice. The tofu is warm, slightly crispy on the outside, with a spongy texture that soaks up the spices like a gossip-loving sponge. You chat for a bit about the weather, the state of the roads, and the possibility that clouds are just sky dumplings waiting for soy sauce. He laughs, gives you a refill, and wishes you luck. You continue on. Fringe tidbit: in some mountain regions during the Song era, travelers relied on talking trees, ancient pine or cypress that locals claimed could hum when winds carried news. While most historians dismiss this as poetic folklore, some insist regional officials used hollowed tree trunks to amplify sound and signal station arrivals. Historians still argue whether this practice was widespread or simply romantic myth. You descend into a forested valley where bird calls echo and the light filters through the canopy like gossip through silk screens. Around midday, you reach a small farming village preparing for a temple fair. Music drifts from the square, flutes, drums, the occasional enthusiastic gong. The streets are dotted with food stalls. You surrender to the aromas and queue up at a vendor grilling rice flour cakes stuffed with mung bean paste. They're chewy, warm, and sweet, like edible hugs. You follow it up with a bowl of hand-pulled noodles, slick with soy sauce and studded with slivers of cucumber and a sprinkling of chopped peanuts. Historians still debate the true origin of hand-pulled noodles. Some argue they predate the Song Dynasty. Others say Song chefs refined the process into the acrobatic performance it is today. One theory suggests noodle pulling was once a kind of culinary dance, performed during street fairs to entertain bored nobles and hungry poets alike. You sit on the edge of a low wall, slurping quietly as dancers twirl nearby, their fans snapping open like punctuation marks. A child offers you a skewer of candied hawthorn berries, bright red and glossy like lacquered pearls. You chew one, and the sweet-sour pop jolts you more awake than tea ever could. As the fair winds down, you continue your journey. The road leads you through fields of mustard greens and spring onions, the air sharp with their tang. You pass an ox cart carrying bundles of bamboo shoots. The driver offers you a laugh and a smoked duck leg wrapped in lotus leaf. You save it for dinner, tucking it into your satchel like a secret. Late afternoon. You reach another post station. This one larger, with a stone courtyard, shaded seating, and the unmistakable smell of something baking. Inside, a clerk reviews your route log while a cook brings over a tray of steamed taro buns filled with sesame and jujube. You could cry. You don't, but it's close. One bun disappears in 3 bites. The other, you eat slowly, savoring the contrast between nutty paste and fluffy dough. A scribe nearby complains about ink shortages. You nod sympathetically, mouthful of solace. You leave the station with a light heart and an even lighter satchel. As dusk begins to settle, you stop by a small stream to rinse your face and refill your flask. The water is cold, clean, and tinged with minerals. You chew on a dried plum as you walk, letting its puckery tang keep your senses alert. The inn tonight is tucked beneath a banyan tree. The keeper welcomes you with a wink and a kettle full of ginger rice tea. Dinner is wild greens in garlic broth, flatbread with fermented soybean spread, and the smoked duck leg you remembered just in time. You eat in silence, grateful. Outside, frogs chirp. Inside, a candle flickers. You lie back, full of noodles and gratitude, and drift off with the faintest smile. The candle guttered sometime in the night, and you wake to the buttery smell of sesame pancakes frying in oil, which, honestly, is a better alarm than anything you've ever encountered. The innkeeper's daughter waves you over to the hearth, handing you one of the golden discs, still warm and dusted with coarse sugar. You take a bite and feel the crunch give way to chewy, flaky layers. The kind of breakfast that makes you question your commitment to travel. Perhaps just one more pancake. But no, you're a courier, a mover of messages, a vessel of paper-bound secrets. You roll your eyes dramatically and return to your path like the hero of a low-budget epic. Today's route snakes through a tea-producing village where the scent of roasted oolong leaves rides the breeze like a polite invitation. Villagers bend over wide baskets, tossing the curled leaves in rhythmic motions to encourage oxidation. You wave. They wave back. A child offers you a sliver of tea jelly, a wobbly sweet cube made from steeped brews thickened with agar. It tastes like a deconstructed conversation, light, floral, and vaguely gossipy. Mainstream historical fact: during the Song Dynasty, tea culture exploded, with tea houses becoming social hubs and regional teas gaining reputations. Oolong-style semi-oxidized teas were particularly popular in southeastern regions, valued not just for flavor, but for the artistry of preparation. The trail weaves between low hills and bamboo groves, where cicadas whine like bored poets. You munch on toasted lotus seeds from a pouch gifted by the tea workers, their mild nuttiness keeping your pace steady and your jaw politely occupied. Birds call above. A monkey hurls a twig in your general direction. Rude, but understandable. You must have startled it with your excellent posture. Around midday, you pass a merchant caravan stopped near a shaded clearing. A fire crackles nearby, and the scent of braised eggplant with garlic wafts through the air. One of the drivers gestures for you to join them. You exchange route gossip while sharing a simple meal of sticky rice dumplings wrapped in reed leaves, filled with mushrooms, salted egg yolk, and chestnuts. Fringe tidbit: some records suggest certain Song Dynasty messengers carried travel charms woven from dried herbs, believed to ward off snake bites and bad weather. These charms were often tied to their satchels or tucked discreetly into tunics. Historians still argue whether these were widespread practical tools or just comfort rituals passed down by superstitious aunties. As the caravan prepares to move, you say your goodbyes and resume your journey. The terrain grows flatter, the road dustier. You pass terraced fields, where shallots and ginger poke their green heads from the earth like curious scholars. Farmers wave with mud-splattered hands. Someone tosses you a braided bread ring coated in anise syrup, a regional favorite for travelers. You chew as you walk, sticky fingers and all. Later in the afternoon, you reach a roadside shrine nestled between 2 twisted camphor trees. A woman in ceremonial robes sweeps the stone steps. She invites you to rest under the eaves and offers a bowl of red bean porridge spiked with dried tangerine peel. The combination is oddly comforting, sweet, tangy, and familiar in a way that makes you want to call your grandmother, which would be impressive considering telephones don't exist yet. Historians still debate the origins of red bean desserts. Some claim they arose in court kitchens. Others argue they were peasant staples jazzed up by bored monks. Either way, you're grateful for their persistence in the timeline. The woman asks if you'd like a fortune read. You decline gently. Your future feels like it's currently wrapped in parchment and tucked inside your messenger bag. She smiles anyway, hands you a tiny rice cracker shaped like a turtle and says, "For steady steps." You nod, pocket the cracker, and keep going. The sun begins to tilt westward, casting golden light across the landscape. You crest a ridge and see your destination for the night, a lakeside village with stilt houses over water and a communal kitchen already belching fragrant smoke. The scent is unmistakable. Charred scallion fish cakes, crisped in wide iron pans. You wander into the village square just as dinner begins. Children chase each other with paper lanterns, and someone's grandfather is explaining the virtues of marinated duck gizzards to a very disinterested chicken. You settle at a communal table and accept a heaping bowl of noodle soup with tofu skin and bamboo shoots. It's hot, savory, and packed with umami. If you had to write a letter to the emperor, it would be about this soup and its ability to heal emotional exhaustion. A young cook plops down beside you and hands you a folded leaf packet. Inside is a sweet rice triangle studded with red dates and melon seeds. "For the road," she says. You thank her, tuck it into your satchel with reverence, and sigh deeply, half contentment, half steam from the soup still fogging your face. You're given a place to sleep above the dock. A simple room with woven mats, a low window, and the gentle lapping of lake water beneath your feet. The air smells of damp wood, fish bones, and fried garlic, a strangely perfect lullaby. You lie back, fingers interlaced behind your head, belly full of travel and taste, and watch the lanterns dance across the ceiling as your eyelids begin their slow descent. The sound of oars knocking against wooden posts wakes you. Somewhere below, someone is singing, a low rhythmic tune about geese, or maybe wine. You're still not great with local metaphors. You stretch, inhale the scent of smoked fish, and the gentle mildew of damp planks, and feel the warm weight of last night's sticky rice triangle still safely tucked in your satchel. A noble breakfast, if ever there was one. By the time you make it to the village square, people are already bargaining over bundles of fresh lemongrass, strings of dried squid, and jars of fermented tofu that smell like an intellectual challenge. One elderly vendor waves you over and insists you sample her rice cakes steamed in banana leaves, filled with mung bean paste, and a sliver of caramelized shallot. It's sweet, it's savory, and your mouth decides it will never trust another snack again unless it comes wrapped in greenery. Today's leg of your route skirts the edge of a saltwater estuary, where crab traps and drying racks dot the shoreline like punctuation in a particularly pungent essay. A passing fisherman offers you dried anchovies coated in honey and sesame, which sound wrong but taste oddly right, like a contradiction that works. You trade him the turtle-shaped rice cracker you'd been saving. He nods in approval, and you both pretend that wasn't the highlight of your respective weeks. Mainstream historical fact: the Song Dynasty's economy included sophisticated salt tax systems, and salt marsh communities often developed complex relationships with state couriers who could deliver messages, or bribes, depending on the salinity of local politics. Further inland, you cross through patches of wet rice fields, where egrets pick their way delicately across furrows, and farmers call to each other using long, melodic whistles. You're invited to join a meal under a rickety bamboo awning, where the workers are taking a break. They pass around bamboo tubes split open to reveal steamed rice and pickled mustard greens, which are sour, sharp, and exactly what your sleepy afternoon needed. One of them gives you a ceramic flask of ginger vinegar water, supposedly to keep your chai upright. You nod solemnly, take a sip, and immediately feel like you've swallowed both fire and philosophy. You thank him. He pats you on the back so hard you nearly launch into the next province. Historians still argue whether such regional tonics were genuinely medicinal or just a culturally approved dare. Your next stop is a monastery that doubles as a postal checkpoint, nestled between two low hills. The gatekeeper is a monk with enviably smooth skin and the voice of someone who knows where all the dumplings are buried. He invites you in for a quiet meal of wheat gluten stewed in mushroom broth, served with a side of lotus root chips dusted with 5-spice powder. While you eat, he explains that the monastery was once used to store imperial wine during military campaigns, but these days mostly handles scrolls, minor prophecies, and the occasional love letter misdelivered out of sheer divine comedy. There's a faint scent of pine smoke and sandalwood in the air, curling through latticed windows. The silence is the good kind, the kind that stretches and breathes with you. You take a moment to nap under a persimmon tree, where a passing cat decides your shoulder is an acceptable nap perch. You are too tired to argue. Before you leave, the monk presses a small jar into your hand. Inside, preserved lemon rinds soaked in plum sauce, meant to nibble for energy or amusement. You take one now. It puckers your entire face, which the monk finds hilarious. You depart with dignity, only slightly dented. The trail grows rocky as the sun begins to dip, and you find yourself following an ancient canal where boats drift lazily, laden with sugarcane, dried bamboo fungus, and water caltrops that look like tiny bat wings, but allegedly taste like a cross between a chestnut and a philosophical riddle. You resist the urge to flag one down for a snack, and instead chew thoughtfully on candied ginger fished from your pocket. As twilight settles, you arrive in a town known for its food stalls and rumor mills. Red lanterns swing lazily in the breeze, and the scent of grilled river prawns, roasted coconut rice, and steamed buns bursting with jujube paste wafts through the cobbled alleys. It's like walking through a menu written by a poet with a sugar addiction. You sit at a tiny wooden table under a plum tree and order a bowl of rice noodles swimming in peppery broth, topped with crushed peanuts and pickled radish. A nearby table is embroiled in a heated debate about whether the moon causes indigestion when eaten under. You sip your broth and pretend to ponder this ancient truth. Fringe tidbit. Some travelers during the Song era recorded instructions on how to bribe a noodle vendor to hurry up, which involved rhythmic clapping and a certain look best described as urgently philosophical. You finish with a dessert called cloud tofu, a whipped, sweetened, silken tofu dish topped with osmanthus syrup. It is, in a word, transcendent. In 2 words, nap-inducing. A kind vendor offers you a warm brick of baked taro pudding wrapped in dried palm husk for the road. You accept, nod, and wonder if your satchel has achieved enlightenment through the sheer diversity of snacks it contains. You find lodging above a lamp maker's shop, where the air smells of beeswax and old lacquer. Your window opens to the quiet canal, reflecting lanterns like little floating thoughts. As your head hits the pillow, your thoughts drift between fish cakes, ginger water, and that lemon rind you'll never emotionally recover from. You stir awake to a rhythmic thunk, wooden ladles hitting stone pots, and the faintest whisper of steamed rice vinegar rising in the morning air. The lamp maker's daughter is downstairs, already boiling rice to make the base for vinegar and sweet wine. The scent is sharper than coffee, but less judgmental. It nudges you into motion, not with urgency, but with the gentle insistence of something ancient that has simmered since dawn. She hands you a tiny cup of fermented rice wine breakfast soup, its surface flecked with crushed goji berries. It tastes oddly like dessert, but the kind you're proud of eating before noon. You adjust your travel pack, now suspiciously food-heavy, and resume your journey along a forest road flanked by camphor and mulberry trees. Cicadas buzz like gossiping bureaucrats. You nibble at the baked taro pudding from last night. Its dense texture and smoky sweetness comforting in a way only carbohydrates can be. Your first human encounter today is a traveling opera troupe rehearsing beside a creek. One performer is cooking duck egg omelets with mint and garlic chives over a charcoal stove. You exchange pleasantries, and she insists you try one. You accept, because to refuse street food in this life is a betrayal in all lives. It's eggy, herbal, and oddly refreshing. The kind of dish you'd imagine a scholar's ghost would haunt. Mainstream historical fact. During the Song Dynasty, traveling opera troupes were common along major roads, entertaining locals and nobles alike, and often doubling as news sources and social commentators. The road forks, and you take the lesser-trod path through a hillside orchard. The trees are low and twisted with age, branches heavy with Asian pears and hawthorn berries. You snack directly from the branch, because no one's watching and because you're an adult and this is your myth now. At a shaded bend, a spice vendor rests with his donkey and an array of dried goods. You stop to chat. He offers you a strange concoction, toasted mung beans with dried tangerine peel and cracked pepper. It's oddly good. He insists it improves memory. You immediately forget what you were just thinking about. Classic. Fringe tidbit. Song Dynasty, spice merchants sometimes used perfumed handkerchiefs to advertise their blends, flicking them through the air so passers-by could taste their wares from 10 feet away. Historians still argue whether this counts as marketing or martial arts. As you crest the next hill, the scent of bubbling soy sauce and charred spring onions floats up to greet you. A tiny tavern waits just beyond, half hidden by flowering vines. Inside, a pair of elderly twins run the kitchen, their timing so seamless it feels choreographed. They serve you a dish of braised tofu skin and mushrooms, followed by a warm cup of fermented plum juice. Tangy, and just enough alcohol to blur the edges of your worries. You ask for directions, and instead receive a lecture on how to properly clean one's chopsticks before a meal using only steam and a moral heart. You nod with the reverence of someone who fully understands and will immediately forget. Later that afternoon, your path crosses with a floating market. Dozens of flat-bottom boats tethered together, selling fruits, dumplings, and household charms. The air is thick with the scent of fried bananas, glutinous rice cakes, and fresh coriander. You drift from boat to boat, trying not to fall in, again, and eventually end up with a folded leaf packet of pineapple sticky rice and a cup of chilled almond milk jelly. Historians still debate whether such markets originated as emergency distribution systems during floods or as leisurely shopping for boat-bound introverts. Either way, you could live here, hypothetically. The sun slides down like it's also full of tofu and wants a nap. You reach a sleepy village surrounded by lotus ponds. Dragonflies flit across the water like indecisive punctuation. A local offers you lotus seed paste buns, delicately imprinted with mythical creatures. Yours features a Keelan, wearing a baffled expression. You decide this is now your spirit animal. As you stroll through the village, you're flagged down by a trio of aunties seated around a giant wok. They're frying shredded taro fritters with scallion and scolding each other affectionately. They insist you join them. One gives you a cup of chrysanthemum tea with jujube slices floating like tiny ships. Fringe snack bonus. One auntie produces a chewy, obscure treat called sugar inkstones, molasses-flavored squares shaped like calligraphy weights. She says they help you write better. You say nothing but resolve to use one as a paperweight forever. Night falls, lanterns are lit, and someone starts playing a two-stringed air hoo nearby. The music floats into the air like steam from a pork bun. You've eaten enough today to make a mild dragon drowsy. A young scholar offers you a guest bed in his family's home. It's modest but clean and smells faintly of roasted chestnuts and wood ash. You lie down, mind swaying gently with the rhythm of your day. The fritter crackle, the almond jelly chill, the rice wine's sleepy burn. You're starting to think maybe this postman gig isn't so bad. You haven't written home in weeks, but frankly, your hands are too full of pastries. And maybe, just maybe, that's the way it should be. You wake in the pre-dawn hush, where the sky is still deciding whether to be night or day. There's a soft clatter in the courtyard. Someone sweeping with a bamboo broom, the swish-swish rhythmic like breathing. You rise, stretch, and inhale the gentle scent of toasted sesame and barley porridge drifting in from the hearth. It's not flashy, but it's comforting, like wearing socks that match for once. The scholar's mother greets you with a quiet nod and a small bowl. Inside, porridge spiked with pickled radish and slivers of ginger. A little sour, a little heat, and a lot of, "You're welcome in this kitchen." You finish the bowl, thank her with exaggerated bowing motions, and try to repay her by helping gather firewood, only to be shooed away as if you were a confused goose. You sling your travel bag back over your shoulder. It's significantly heavier. You suspect someone packed more snacks in there while you slept. This is not a complaint. Out on the road again, you move through fog-laced hills dotted with tea bushes, and the sleepy hum of cicadas tuning up for the day. A roadside stand catches your eye. Just a cart with wheels, a kettle, and one old man boiling dried chrysanthemum, fennel, and licorice root over a coal burner. You sip his tea slowly. It tastes like everything your spine forgot it needed. Mainstream historical fact. Tea was not only a staple drink during the Song Dynasty, it was also part of civil service rituals, diplomatic gifts, and even used in temple offerings. It wasn't just tea, it was social capital, liquid meditation, and your hydration plan all at once. You share a bench with a schoolboy eating sticky rice wrapped in lotus leaves, meticulously unwrapping it like it contains state secrets. He lets you try a bite. It's warm, umami-rich, and smells faintly of bamboo and rain. He asks if you're a real postman. You say yes, but the letters keep getting lost in your stomach. He laughs. You feel oddly proud. The path levels out into a broad plain. A traveling monk waves you down with a cheerful, "Have you eaten yet?" which in Song-era etiquette means, "Let's eat now." He serves you wheat noodles with pickled mustard greens from a small tin pot, and regales you with tales of delivery routes mapped by constellations. Historians still argue whether monks really memorized entire postal circuits or just had excellent gossip networks. You pass through a town prepping for a festival. There are poles being painted, banners unfurled, and a culinary competition involving sugar sculptures and deep-fried insects. You politely decline the beetle on a stick, but say yes to the bean jelly ribbons with sesame chili paste. They're springy, spicy, and make your lips tingle in a way that feels borderline spiritual. You overhear a chef arguing with a tofu merchant about the ideal hour to boil soy milk for maximum creaminess. You nod as though you have opinions. They accept you as one of their own. For lunch, you find a quiet stall selling pan-fried yam cakes dusted with cinnamon. The vendor insists on giving you a free egg custard tart because you have kind eyes. You wonder if she says that to everyone, but the tart is too good to worry about it. A goat wanders by wearing bells. You're unsure if it's symbolic or just Thursday. Fringe tidbit. There was a popular superstition in Song-era villages that goats with two-tone horns brought good luck to messengers, especially if you spotted them while eating noodles. You, conveniently, are mid-bite. Evening slides in like a warm silk scarf. You reach your final postal stop of the week, a lakeside village cradled in reeds and lamp-lit windows. The local headwoman greets you with a folded note and a sweet bean bun stamped with a tiny lotus seal. You deliver her reply, then linger as she offers you dinner by the water's edge. The spread is modest but perfect. Steamed river fish with ginger fermented black bean paste, lotus root stir-fry, and a dessert of glutinous rice balls in osmanthus syrup. The flavors are precise, ancient, and deeply personal. Every bite feels like a conversation you didn't know you needed to have. The lake mirrors the sky, and fireflies sketch lazy constellations near the reeds. You lean back on your elbows, belly full, spirit quiet. A passing breeze brings the scent of charcoal and marsh violets, and you exhale the kind of breath that feels like a soft reset. Historians still debate whether Song Dynasty postmen were lonely or revered, but you know this. At the end of a long day, full of borrowed meals and unexpected kindness, you feel more connected than ever. Not just to the route, or the people, or even the food, but to a pace of life where every stop matters. Your journey's almost done, but the smells and flavors will linger like gentle ghosts in your memory. A faint whiff of scallion oil, a trickle of rice wine warmth, a bun shaped like a keelin, and just like that, the lanterns dim. The world exhales. The last lantern flickers once, then settles into a soft orange hush, as if even the flame is ready to sleep. You lie on your side beneath a woven cotton quilt, the fabric still faintly scented with wood smoke and herbal tea. Somewhere in the distance, a nightbird calls, half lullaby, half question, and then silence gently settles in behind it. You can still taste the memory of lotus paste and sesame. Not on your tongue exactly, but somewhere just behind your smile. Your limbs relax into the weight of the day, like soup thickening with time. The hum of conversation, the rustle of bamboo groves, the clink of teacups, all of it dissolves into the stillness. Each inhale feels cooler, each exhale longer. The air is soft against your cheeks. Sleep begins at the edges, just the fingertips at first, then the temples, and then the thoughts themselves begin to stretch, soften, and curl like steam rising from a morning bowl of porridge. You feel yourself drifting through the last notes of a postman's quiet journey. Full belly, full heart, and absolutely no letters delivered on time. Just the way the Song Dynasty would have wanted. Now, let the night carry you like a reed boat on still water. No rush, no road ahead, just rest. Good night and sweet dreams.